Please welcome back to the stage, Estrada, David.
Mr. Rafael, good person, good car, engineer the car. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone.
No, we're doing this as if you're just leaving us.
I'll moderate.
All right.
How's that? Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a round of applause to these three gentlemen right here?
I know we talked about at the beginning, but we have crew in the house and we have family in the house, and this film would not have been made without them, so please make some noise for that.
Rafa, this is the first movie I've seen that uses the city of Oakland as a character in, I'm really damn good at this, guys, so just get ready to learn something about hosting. No, Oakland plays a character in this film, a major character in this film. What does the city of Oakland mean to you? What has it done for your art? How has it influenced you as a creative mind, as an activist, as an actor, and as a musician? And how do you think it played into making this film? That was good.
I think Diggs and I should both answer that. I would assume most people are here from Salt Lake. San Francisco, oh, better. Oh, y'all getting an early view, yes.
We're planning a whole shit in the
Awesome. There's always something magical about the place that you grow up, and there's also something that happens to it as it changes sort of underneath your feet. And Oakland is one of those cities that's going under this sort of massive turnover of gentrification, and I think it is an artistic and cultural hub of the Bay Area. So whether you grew up in Oakland or around Oakland, in the same way if you grew up in Brooklyn or around Brooklyn or Chicago or in the neighboring suburbs, it has this like fundamental impact on your life. And that city has changed so much for us, and so I think that both of us really wanted to create something that sort of time capsuled the city the way that we know and love it, so that we could show the world what makes the Bay Area and Oakland and the other cities that surround it so unique and interesting. And so that's one of the reasons we made this film.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. He said the thing correctly.
That was our writing process too.
Should we go to questions?
I think so.
All right, let's have, yes, right here in front.
Oh, I'm gonna jump on
Did
this.
you guys up there hear the question? Okay, so what was asked was, to what extent were the two characters, Miles and Colin, actual characters, human beings, and to what extent are they metaphors or tropes, specifically Rafa's character, Miles?
I'm just gonna jump on this one because it comes up a lot, and I don't know, y'all Bay folks in the house, you know a Miles? Yeah, right? I know a lot of Mileses, we know a lot of Mileses. Miles is very real. And Colin is very real, and to us, at least, every character in this film is very, very real. These are amalgams of real people in real situations that we grew up with, and I think it's funny, we haven't seen a lot of it in film, I don't think. We haven't seen a lot of a white boy who is comfortable and grew up around a mostly black neighborhood. That's just a story that I haven't seen in a lot of movies. That's a character I haven't met often in movies, but these are people who I grew up with, and so it's funny. People often sort of respond to the character of Miles as like, you know, as if he is a caricature, and that's awesome. If that is your response to it, that is awesome. That's the response you were supposed to have. It certainly wasn't the one that we had while writing him. Miles is we know a lot of Mileses.
Yeah, but our goal was to try to bring characters to life that we hadn't really ever seen on screen before. Characters that we grew up around. I remember there's this really great moment on the first day of shooting when we were getting ready to shoot our first scene. In this intersection in the middle of West Oakland, day one, and this dude, I'm in my gear, I got the grill on, I got the jacket, the hair slicked back, I'm looking dope, and I'm like standing outside of the liquor store, sort of like trying to get in Miles's head, and there's all this camera gear around outside of the liquor store, and the liquor store is shut down for the day because we're shooting there, and this dude,
which we said was a problem.
Which we said was a problem.
We informed security that this was
like, you can't shut down a liquor store, people will get upset. People need their peach rings. This shit is a serious. But we're standing there, and this dude comes by. He's got like socks up to here, and he's got the slipper flip flops on, his shorts that he's sagging. He's a white dude, super tall, gold teeth in his mouth with a backwards hat, and he just looks at all of us. Super multicultural crew. Nothing that indicates that we're not from there, but just the fact that it's a crew. He just goes, "Are you gentrifying motherfuckers?" And just blows through, and I just went, "Oh shit, there's Miles."
He actually, that line, gentrification on a whole nother level. That's him. He said it out loud. We put it in the movie.
Look at everybody with gentrification on a whole nother level. We're like, oh, that's going in.
Yes, right here. Michelle asked if David could speak to the use of the N-word in this movie as a supporting character.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is obviously like we deal with how the word nigga is used, but I think at least until we bring it up, it's used fairly casually, which is the way that it is used. I don't know, and I think in that sort of climactic scene where Miles and Colin are having this argument, the historic weight of that word is one part of a revelation that Colin is trying to get to throughout the film about why he feels so unsafe. Why he always feels hunted, and one part of his reasoning with that is in the difference in their ability to use this word and what that word historically means, right? But I also think that the film does a pretty good job both before and after that. To me, I think the film does a good job of a lot of things. So when I say that, that's not really for me to decide, but I think, it is used very casually throughout. And I think people react to it differently. I think, my mom, when she saw it, was like, "Oh, I was so glad that you guys discussed that in that scene because it was really uncomfortable how much you were calling him a nigga throughout that." She didn't say nigga, she's white. But, but I was really uncomfortable with how much you were calling him that, and I thought that was funny because I use that word conversationally all the time, and I call Rafa that fairly often, but not around my mom. Which is just to say that context is everything, and context defines language, right? A word means nothing outside of its context, and so one of the things that Colin is grappling with throughout the whole film is his context. Is what is happening to the context in which he grew up, right? The context is changing and he all of a sudden feels out of place in it. He feels unsafe because he doesn't understand where he fits into the thing. And that word is one part of those things. The casual nature with which he was able to use that word, and it changes for Miles too. He goes home and tells tells Jasmine, Ashley tells Ashley, don't call me that. You know, their context has changed. So the freedom with which you were able to use that word is not available anymore because it's in a different context.
I agree.
Yes, up here in the balcony. What is it like to transition from being a super dope rapper to making movies?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that's tough to say because this is the only movie I've ever made in a real sense, right? I mean, like I've acted in things, but we also have been writing scripts for almost as long as we've been writing raps, right? The skill set for everything is, or the way you work on it, the way I work on anything is the same, right? I search for the thing that is really exciting, and I like things that are virtuosic, and so, you know, I like my raps the same way I like my movies. I like them to be like kind of flashy, and I like it to, you know, be different if you see it a different time. I like you to be able to hear different things within them, you know. So the process feels very much the same to me, but maybe I'll let you know after the second movie. I don't know. I don't have a lot of context to answer this question.
Yes, sir, in the red.
So New Orleans, if we're doing that, come visit.
It's one of my favorite places.
One of my favorite cities.
Actually, the only other place in the country I've ever been to where I was like, oh, I could live here. I love New Orleans.
We'd love to have you. So my question is this: sometimes I'm a writer. The transition between poetry and prose is often clumsy. You pull it off seamlessly. I wonder if it presented any challenges either in the directing of the scene or in the editing bay.
So what are the challenges between going from prose to poetry in this film for the writers?
I think, so the original concept for the film was to try to bring heightened language into this world as one of the major as one of the core pieces of the DNA of the movie and the story that we were telling. And so we approached it the same way you would a musical or anything else, where you look at the most heightened moments and you just allow them to tell you when it needs to be elevated. Now we had a crutch, which is that the Bay Area is a hotbed for innovative language and slang and stylized speech to begin with. And so we used that as sort of a launching point to go, okay, well, if language is already heightened in the Bay Area, how do we just sort of continue to extend that in the moments where Colin's PTSD from his experience is taking him further and further down into sort of a magical obscurity. And so you notice throughout the film, like the first time we hear him rap, it's very, very literal. And as it goes on, it gets more and more sort of obscure, and you're not sure entirely how much is in his head and how much is real. And so it's that easing process, right? We have these like very natural check-in points of when you know that he's rapping, but then we made sure there were other things that blurred it, right? Like the beauty salon scene is actually in rhyme and in meter. The slang exchange between myself and Lance when he's buying the sailboat is in meter, even though we're performing it out of time. And so those were things to try to get you used to the idea that language would ramp and sit back down into dialogue at a moment's notice. And that was our sort of mechanism for getting you used to the ebb and flow of language.
Just Carlos, any insight about directing those scenes, and Janina and Karsh, anything about working with the texts like that?
Well, I think I met David 6 years ago, and we've been working in music videos together ever since. I think we've done probably 10 or so. I met Rafa for David, and the three of us have been working on these projects that, to me, looking back now, feel like training for Blindspotting. I think we got to work on music projects, we got to work on projects that incorporated really theatrical tools, projects that incorporated spoken word, and we worked with poets, we worked with all kinds of sort of like multidisciplinary artists. And when Blindspotting came up, it seemed like it was one project that would allow for us to flex all of those muscles that we had been working on together for the past 6 years. And I think the challenge was really just to figure out when to flex the right muscle and when was too much and when was not enough. As you can see, both Rafa and David have very dear, very specific idea of what the Bay means to them and what the Bay sounds like and what the Bay looks like and what the Bay smells like. So I think the biggest challenge for me was to learn how to see the city that they love so much through their eyes and to understand what about the characters and what about the places and what about the ideas that we were exploring was important to them and to translate that into images. So I'm pretty happy with what we did. No. I was going to say, Janina usually has very beautiful stuff to say, so we should not end this Q&A without you saying something. There's a question for Janina.
No one. I'll say the things I want to say, which are, one of the things that's very exciting to me is that people are looking at Blindspotting as a celebration of diverse faces on screen. Yeah, yay. But also, for us, one of the most exciting things is that these 3 people created a space for very diverse artists and processes to converge and be safe to try the things that we do in our own processes. Examples. That dude over there is clearly like an improv comedy guy.
Look at him. Just improv-y. He sits like one.
I'm a classical musician. I'm sort of like nerdy, study, trainee kid. And we are, as you said, multidisciplinary artists. Many of us come from theater. And in talking about verse, we all know Shakespeare, right? That shit was in verse. Verse has been a fundamental part of storytelling for such a very long time. And I think that is also why this is seamless. It's classic.
Yeah, last question.
We actually had a very, you repeat the question.
As a Mexican American, Carlos, how did it? How does your point of view with the movie? I'm sorry,
As a Mexican American director who was not born in this country, what is your perspective on directing
Thank you,
a film
Rafael.
like this?
Thank you.
We actually had this conversation when Janina auditioned. She auditioned and she blew us all away, and then she sat down with Keith and Jess, our producers, and we just had this conversation about what the movie meant to her and what it meant to us. Of course, like there's many aspects about the movie that I initially, on paper, can't really relate to because I wasn't born in Oakland, because I'm not an African American man. But the movie to me is a movie about identity and about someone trying to find their place in the world, and I think many of us, even without knowing, have to ask those questions. I wasn't born in this country. I came when I was 12 and I didn't speak the language well, and I mean, it's still sort of like a journey to try to figure out what it means for me to be here, what it means for me to not have been born here and to represent a country that people have very different ideas on. And Janina had sort of like a very similar experience for different reasons. So to me, what is beautiful about the movie is the fact that even though it's a very specific movie about a very specific place and a group of people, I think the ideas that it presents are ones that we can all connect with, and at least for me, I know what it means to be an outsider, and I know what it means to look around and not look like the people that are around you, and the many questions that brings. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it gives you a little window into, yeah.
This movie, for us, it means the world to us. It was made in between 22 and 25 days, depending on who you ask. These guys wrote a script, and then they gave it away to their actors and to their crew and to their director, and with a lot of faith and passion and belief, we were all allowed to do what we do best, thanks to their belief in us. And we hope you guys enjoyed this film. Please tell everyone you know about it. Even if you didn't like it, don't talk shit at the bar. It's all good. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.